Parshas Ba'alois Chonet Yisrael Nosoi in Chutz La'aretz. Last week, Klal Yisrael lost one of the big tzaddikim of the door, Reb Uri zohar, and it has a lot of meaning. People should learn and understand. It's a big part of Torah, understanding what this person went through, and to really try to learn from it, because Hashem sends nishamas to the world, and the journey that the Neshama goes through to teach us, so people could learn from it. David HaMelech is one of those examples. The Gemara says in Masechtas Avodah Zarah that David HaMelech, we know that David HaMelech had an Aveira with Bathsheba. There's a whole story. David HaMelech in Tehillim, this kapitel of Tehillim, which David HaMelech asks for Hashem to forgive him on the chait from Bathsheba. And the Gemara says in Masechtas Avodah Zarah that David HaMelech, it made no sense for him to be nichshel, to fall through with the Aveira of Bathsheba. The Gemara says that David HaMelech in Tehillim says, Liboy cholol b'kirboy, Libi cholol b'kirbi, which means that he had no Yetzer Hara. He worked on himself until he got to the stage, zero Yetzer Hara. Nothing spoke to him. Nothing. We can't even fathom what that means. And such a huge tzaddik should have such a big Aveira. So the Gemara says that the reason why this happened is because Hashem did it to David HaMelech, didn't give him bechira. He should be able to choose. It made it happen to him in order for David HaMelech to do tshuva. And Hashem did that to teach every yid that Hashem takes anybody that wants to do tshuva. Hashem will take the person and hug him and take him back, and he'll be close to Hashem. And that's why it needed to happen. Such a story by David HaMelech. Now, the Maral in the Sefer Tiferes Yisrael explains that even though we find the psukim in the Torah that this tshuva, anybody could look it up, check it out. There's psukim in the Torah that say that any yid, any aveda that a person does, a person could do tshuva, and Hashem is going to take him back, and he'll be close to Hashem, and Hashem is mamash waiting for each neshama. So why do we need David HaMelech to teach us that if it's simple psukim of the Torah? So the Maral says because tshuva is so deep that it's not enough to just learn it in the psukim. You have to be able to visualize it, to watch it happen. Because to see a person that does all kinds of terrible aveiros and has been there and did all the terrible things, and then to really believe, to see, to watch this neshama coming back and becoming a tzaddik, and it should be erased. Everything that happened should be erased. A person can't really comprehend. The mind has to process it. So if you learn the psukim, you'll never really chap how deep it goes and how true it is. So Hashem takes neshamas and brings them to the world and makes them go through these journeys in order for other people to learn and watch and see it live. That's what the Maral says. And it's such a beautiful Maral when we think about this tzaddik, Reb Uri zohar, which is fascinating. The story is very famous, but not always because it's famous it means that we actually sit down and think what happened. It's really fascinating. You had a person that was a comedian and an actor and what else, and the whole Israel, all the people, everybody knew him. Millions of people knew him, followed him. In those days, whatever followed means in 45 years ago, but on TV and everything, and he was the successful man. He had everything. He didn't go through hardships to become a Baal Tshuva. That's not what happened. He was the top of the game. If it's fame, money, and temptations, whatever he wanted, whatever. And in the midst of all of that, in the middle, when he found the truth, it was the whole story it was Reb Zilberman from Yoshalam. There's the Kehillah Zilberman from the old city, his father, the one that runs the Kehillah now, his father, Yitzchak Shlomo Zilberman. He had a discussion with him, and he started realizing that he's living a life which is full of nonsense, and it's not a true life, and he wanted to be honest with himself, and he started his journey. Now this person was in his 40s, 42, when this happened to him. And Hashem could have made it to be different if we think about it. Why did he have to be such a handsome, such a he was so talented, such a talented person. He was so talented that everybody knew him and admired him for his talent and for his humor and for his acting and for everything. And why did Hashem give him all those talents? And then Hashem could have made that he could have met up with this person 20 years earlier. No. He had to go through this whole process. And when he was there in the top of the game, and then he should do tshuva, it had a purpose. It had to be like that. Because if we look in the reality what happened, thousands of people became Bali Tshuva because they saw what happened to him. There's a person sitting by the Shir in Beitar. We have Reb Leibel Druk. He says he once met he met a lawyer. He was working with a lawyer, and the lawyer tells him then, back in the day, 40 years ago, when he became Bal Tshuva, the lawyer tells him, Lama lakachtem et Uri Zohar? Why do you have to take him? You could have taken anybody else. Why did he take away our beloved person? Why did you take him? And that's really the answer. The answer is that it's pre-planned. We must know about it. This is really pre-planned. There's our Racham HaKodesh Parshas Re'eh. And the Racham HaKodesh Parshas Re'eh explains that Moshe Rabbeinu came to the Yidden and he said, okay, listen, Re'eh anoichi noisen lefnechem hayom brocha u'klola. You can choose esachayim v'samoves. You can go the right way, you can go the way that's going to bring you to death and to bad things. And the Racham HaKodesh explains, why does it say Re'eh anoichi? Anoichi means look at me. So the Racham HaKodesh says that the Hashem made Moshe Rabbeinu have a lot of money, and he was a gibor, strong person. He had everything in Olam Hazeh as well. And Moshe Rabbeinu told him, if I would have been a pauper, if I wouldn't have had anything, and the only thing I could do is Torah, what are my options? Then people would say, okay, listen, you like Lokshan, I like Kugel. You like learning Torah, well, that's just fine. You're a great man, but I like doing something else. That's why Hashem took Moshe Rabbeinu and gave him everything. He had Olam Hazeh. And then Moshe Rabbeinu said, I've been there, done that. I know what it's all about. And I'm telling you, it's not good. Now, that's what Hashem does in generations for the tachlis from the klal, for klal Yisrael, for the nishamas. Takes a person, gives him talent, covet, money, whatever it is. And then when everybody's watching, when everybody's looking, Hashem just makes the person aware of the truth. Doesn't do anything. He just met up with Rabbi Zilberman. And then that person says, listen, I don't feel I could live a life of sheker. And the person does tshuva. And everybody's there and says, wow, that's something else. I can't believe it. That means that he tasted, he knows what it's all about, and he chose the right way. And we have to learn from it.
Does that mean they didn't have bechira till then?
It could be that he didn't have bechira. We'll discuss that in the hemshech from the shir. But definitely, part of the limud is that the person doesn't have bechira until then. Sure. The raya to that is tinoikus inishbu. A person that doesn't know better, a person that was brought up in a house that they couldn't have learned to, they were brought up differently. What were they supposed to choose? What? They don't know about anything. They weren't exposed. They never learned. But we'll continue on in this year that definitely Hashem takes away bechira from people in different ways. Not only if they're brought up differently, just a lot of different oifanim, how Hashem takes away bechira for a reason. And that's what we need to learn. It's a topic. So we start off the shir just saying, the first part of the shir is this maral, that Hashem wants to teach people how unbelievable tshuva is, and a person could do tshuva no matter where a person is up to. So Hashem shows how it works. Now, whoever saw Reb Uri in all the years that he was learning, it wasn't only that he did tshuva. It's far beyond that. Reb Uri became a different type of a person. All his tchunas hanefesh, his personality, he was built on when a person is living a life of fame, a life that everybody knows who he is. So they live on covet. They live on outside feedback. Much worse, I'm using very edel words. But then, even if a person starts learning, Even if a person starts trying to daven or whatever, but the nefesh still has a need, so you could find people that they would do it just in a different way. They feel they have to say and do and be, so they'd be famous in Torah. It's fascinating how the person learned Torah, and the Torah just transformed the person, totally transformed the person from head to toe, until in the 40s he was so wild. He did crazy things, and he became such a meyushavdige person, so mola yishuv adas anova. He had a famous apartment. He had so much money in Tel Aviv, big, huge, fancy. He moved out. He rented it out to whatever. He went and he moved into his little house in Yoshalam. He didn't need more, and he learned and helped others with midas, with savlonos, with anova, with sneas. Fascinating what Torah what it could do to a person, and it teaches us if a person learns Torah for the right purpose. It means the person is thinking, I want to become close to Hashem, and I'm learning Torah to get to know Hashem. Then that slowly it seeps in, and it's, you could see how emes the Torah is. It's such a chizik and emunah to see what is the koyach HaTorah. In the worldwide, it means you could have millions and billions of people that they do things different in their life. They found this, they found that, but you'll always find that the essence of the person stays the same. It's just they do it in different shades and different. When they were little, they say the difference between men and boys is the price of their toys. There's a saying. It's the same. It's acting the same. You watch people when they're 2, and when they're 20, when they're 60. They're doing the same, acting the same. It's just that here he wanted a lollipop, here he wanted to have a best friend, then he wanted to have money, a nice car. It's the same. And then when a person learns Torah, and he doesn't need, and they're fine, and they're refined. It's fascinating. So it's a limud just to see what Torah could do to a person, and anybody could do it. That means when a person starts crying to Hashem and wants to get closer, and is learning for that reason, I want to get to know Hashem, and Hashem said I should learn, I'll get to know Him. That's what it says in the Gemara. Hashem put Himself into the Torah. And it could happen to anybody. It could happen to anybody. And even women, when they say Tehillim has the koyach HaTorah. And when they say Tehillim, and they say, I'm saying Tehillim to get connected to the oisiyas, to the words of Tehillim, to the words of David HaMelech, it seeps into the Neshama. If a person says it with the guy, even in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but a person saying Tehillim for the purpose of becoming close to Hashem, it's going to happen. Slowly, it seeps in. That's what happens. And we saw it happening to this person, and it's really amazing. But let's touch the topic that you mentioned, which is even more important, to realize it and to chap how Hashem created the system of the world and the system of the nishamas. There are 2 types of nishamas. In total, the types of neshamas that are called tzaddikim, and the types of neshamas that are called balei tshuva. The Gemara says, "B'makom she balei tshuva oimdim, tzaddikim gemurim einam oimdim." The Chayze of Lublin, the famous Chayze from Lublin, said that in today's days, we are all given neshamas of balei tshuva. We're all balei tshuva. What does that mean? It has a very deep meaning, and this topic is discussed. The Arvei Nachal and Parsha Shmois mentions it. The Reb Tzadok, a kohen from Lublin, says it clearly, and Reb Chaim Vital and Shar Gulgulim Perek Aleph mentions it. It's very interesting. Be'ikvus the Mashiach, there are different types of neshamas that come down to the world. Now, those type of neshamas could come earlier also, but be'ikvus the Mashiach, the times before Mashiach comes, it's mainly set up of such neshamas. What's the concept of neshamas of ikvus the Mashiach? The concept is this Odom Rishon was like a whole a koima shleim. I don't know how to say that. That means there's a head, there's hands, there's a whole body, but the neshamas are coming from the eyes of Odom Rishon, from the head of Odom Rishon. As time goes on, so Reb Chaim Vital says, as time goes on, the neshamas are coming from the lower parts of Odom Rishon, which means that those neshamas are less exposed to kedusha. They don't have such emotion to kedusha and such understanding. So part of those neshamas is a very interesting journey that they're supposed to go through. What Hashem does, Hashem makes that those neshamas get exposed to Averis and to Ra, that in a certain sense they don't have Bechira. Now, it's not the same one neshama and the other. It could be that some neshamas didn't have Bechira in the first stage of their life with Kaas, because they were given big nisyanis of getting upset. And in the beginning stage of their life, they tried everything and they couldn't help themselves. A different neshama that was born into a different situation didn't have Bechira when it comes, let's say, to stealing money. They felt they can't control themselves, and they tried again. They fell through again. Hashem knows that in the beginning stages of their life, they had no choice in the matter. And as they were growing up, they were doing it again and again. And it became harder, because a person gets used to doing something and it becomes part of their personality. And the same concept is with different mitzvahs and different averis. They were exposed to bad things they shouldn't have saw, things they shouldn't have done. They were exposed. Hashem just opened everything. We watched in this generation how it became so open in the world that it's almost impossible for so many people, for thousands of people and much more. It's almost impossible that they should be totally disconnected and never ever exposed to something bad. It wasn't always like this. Yetzer hara was always. But you could watch and see people that just see what happened last 10 years and last 20 years. A person sometimes gets lost and says, what does Hashem want? You could have these little boys that they grew up in a chosh of a house and they were never exposed to anything and they were mechanach them, and then just like that, the kid didn't even, and just a friend and this and that, and then they totally lose it sometimes. The Sefer, the Arba Nachal says that Hashem takes away the Bechira, explains it, takes away the Bechira, and makes the person fall into Averis unwillingly, and be in the Aveda, because the journey of afterwards doing tshuva elevates the Neshama to a higher spot than it would have been if the Neshama never would have been exposed to the Aveda. It's hard, it's tough, and the fight is much tougher to get out of it, and the mind still has old pictures, and you have to work on yourself and kill yourself to be able to get out of it. The aliyah for the neshama is strong, because it's like going. It's exact like that's how the neshama, the Sfarim explain it. It's like going into the sewer pipe and getting out a diamond out of there. You could. It's a much bigger gain. You took a parts of a neshama. You took a neshama which was down there and took it up. Now Hashem puts it down there. Hashem, because you take along with that neshama different nitzoitzes. It's called. There's an amazing tachlis. Now you could see it with you could explain it in simple words, if you want, that the nisoyin that a person has in today's generation and works on themselves and watches their eyes and watches what they do and everything, it's more choshev. But it's not only that; it's deeper than that. There's a system of neshamas of Baalei Tshuva, and Hashem wants us to be aware about it, to know about it. It's something that simple neshamas go through, that there's certain situations that a person was korev le'oinus. A person can never use it to get into situations and to be careless and to just neglect. Of course you can't use it, because Hashem knows the truth. If a person was not a oinus and a person did it deliberately, they went and they did something, of course they're going to get a oinish and everything. But if a person looks back and a person is like, what happened? How you look at what's going on and you can't understand. You should know. You have to know there's such a concept. It's very important, because it could set things straight. A person should understand there is such a concept. There are people that they try their best. Hashem knows that they try their best, and it's impossible. There are such people. Of course, there are such people. There are people that are korov l'oinus and all the different types of averis. That they're trying much harder than the regular person. Then they're not successful, and they cried and they tried, and they weren't successful. There is such a concept, and the reason is because one day this neshama is going to go out of that mess, and then the tachlis and the toyelis for that neshama is much stronger. It takes along parts of the neshama, and that brings the geula. And that, in the times of before Mashiach comes, Hashem takes neshamas and puts them through this. And this is clearly mentioned in the Srom, like I mentioned before, Tzidkas HaTzadik. There's a Ois Kuf Yudalev. There's many pieces in Tzidkas HaTzadik from Reb Tzadik. But we mentioned before the Arva Nachal and Parsha Shmoyz, and Chaim Vital, and the Ramchal talks about it clearly, the Ramchal, and many Sforim. Now, it's very important to understand this also when parents are dealing with the very, very, very hard nisayon of children which are struggling with Yiddishkeit. You could have houses that were amazing, fascinating. They gave the children so much love. They spent thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to help educate them and to help them if they had issues. Or all different kinds of crazy stories. And nothing worked. The kid just went their own path and went their own way and dropped Yiddishkeit, or almost did. Every situation very painful. Every situation is different and is unique. How it happened, what happened. But for the people that know, for the people that are a bit exposed to that world of such kids, there are so many crazy stories which make no sense that it's not possible. It's not possible to say that, that kid, of course, you know the guy's father, you know what he did, he terrorized him, of course the guy ran away. And the other guy, was a broken home. And the third, he wasn't so stable. These people that point their fingers and they say that that's why it happened are making a mistake twice. First of all, because they're saying the few stories that they know, and they're saying the explanation they give to the stories. They should be ashamed of themselves, because to just check it up, it takes 5 minutes in today's world to find out a bit more, and you'll see that for every story that you could explain, there are 10 stories that you cannot explain. Simple math. Go look around. It's so stupid to point and say this is why it happened, because it makes no sense. And what are you going to do this one to that one? That's number one. Number two, a person has to think to themselves. So what was Hashem's plan when Hashem created or made that broken home? He's saying, sure, because he was a yoshalam. When he was a teenager and he needed his mother desperately, she just, for 1 second to the next, she passed away. Of course he looks like that. And what was Hashem? What was the plan? Hashem couldn't think of it, that if this is what happens, then it might affect that boy because he's in a sensitive stage in life. And every case, there are so many cases like that. And it gets more painful. It gets more painful. You have sometimes a child that you had a Rebbe or a teacher or whatever that abused the child. And there is the parents feel, others feel, this guy killed my child. He ruined my child forever. And it's very, very painful. And it's even hard to talk about it, because a person watches a child grow up and is fine and edel and everything, and then one nice day something happens and you don't, sometimes you find out afterwards. It's even more painful when you find out afterwards what happened, and it took 5 years to chap. But all those situations, Hashem created a world that people should be exposed and such things should be able to happen, and Hashem didn't think of it, that this could happen. Hashem didn't think that this could happen. So to explain this, I want to just say with this little story, someone that's actually sitting by his share, an amazing story. There was a woman that was nifta not long ago, in her 30s. Now, it was people that knew there were a drop involved knew that it was a crazy story from one of the doctors there that did something. He didn't let them do a whole story, and everybody was mad and writing about it, and it was social media, other places. They knew clearly this hospital, this doctor, because of his covet, because of his gaiva, he didn't let to do certain simple things that could have saved her. And there was a person, and she passed away by the Shiva, the Vizhnitzer Rebbe from Yerushalayim, the son of Ramotah Vizhnitzer from Muncie. So one of his children lives in Yerushalayim. He's involved years in medical, helping people. So he came to the Shiva. And he spoke to the family. And he was involved, so he knew what's going on. So he said, I want to tell you something. Following cases for so many years, hundreds of cases, and doctors and things that went wrong, and every single story, every single avaya has a story behind it. This got complicated, and this they gave the wrong medicine, and the doctor did a wrong move, and because something was complicated. Every single story. So there's a basic chorus of people that enter their mission in life. There's a situation, people come down, nishamas come down for a certain time, and then they continue on. Now every single time there's a story. So he said, don't get carried away, because that's how Hashem brings what has to happen to happen. That's how he does it. Every time a different way. Someone tripped. You see older people in their 90s or whatever. What happened? Oh, they tripped and they broke their hip, and then it got infected, and then. So if they wouldn't have tripped, people every person, we didn't come here to live forever. So they tripped. It was the wheelchair. It was the medicine. It was the person. When it's a Baal Bechira that does it, and a Baal Bechira means a person did it deliberately. Someone went and did it. So the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, Hillel, he says, Hu oya oimer, that he saw, the Mishnah explains it. Hillel went and he saw on the surface of, by the water, he saw a skull. Af hu ro gulgoilis tzofa apnei amoyim. He saw a skull that was swimming, that was on the floating. It was floating in the water. And he said, he watched it. He was observing. He said, "Wow." He said, "Well, someone, if it's a skull, it means someone killed you." So he said, that person is going to get a very big einish. But he said, but you, it had to happen to you for sure. That's what he says. He said, "Al da'ateft atfuch." It's very hard words, but it's the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. I'm quoting a Mishnah. He said, it happened to you because you must have done it to somebody else. If someone killed you like that, then it had to happen. But the guy that did it is going to get punished. That's what he saw. That's what he watched. And that Mishnah tells us that even if a Baal Bechira does something, but how did it happen to you? A person that's driving wild, but why did he drive into that car? He could have drove into a different car. He could have been driving wild here 2 seconds ago. Why did it go here? Because it has a cheshbon, and it happened now because of this. Very simple. It's simple. It has a cheshbon, and it happened this surah, that surah, the other way. It's constantly like that. When a person, we're going back to the ikvus of the Mashiach, when a neshama has to go through a journey and go through Averis and then do tshuva, then it's going to happen. It's very scary. It's extremely painful. And we don't have to add salt to the wounds to also not understand it. It's bad enough. It's painful enough. The Torah gave us information. We should be able to calm ourselves down to understand that this is the journey of life. And by Averis, people get mixed up. That's where people don't know how to put the pieces of the puzzle together, because they say it's real. It says, yes. The Sforim all explain it. The Gemara says it about David HaMelech. The Gemara in Masechta Avodah says it about Klal Yisrael, about the Egel. It says that it made no sense that it happened, that they worshipped Avodah Zorah idol right after Matan Torah. It made no sense. It was sick. It makes zero sense that they should start after they saw Hashem. The Gemara says that Hashem made it happen because Hashem wanted to teach them the journey, the process that a person doesn't evade it. They could come back. Hashem doesn't throw you away. Hashem loves the person and will take back the neshama no matter what. And Hashem is going to help that neshama come back. Now we must know that in addition to that, every single neshama is going to come back. The Rambam gives a haftocha. Lo yidach mimenu nidach. Hashem does all kinds of interesting, crazy ways that the neshamas should come back. And even if a person, lo yolenu, was nifter, left this world before they did tshuva, it's not the end of the story. That's why we have an animal with chiyus hamesim. It's very simple. It's a pasuk in the Torah. The pasuk says lo yisis goydedu. The pasuk in Parashas Rei, if a person goes away from the world, don't take it to heart. Don't get, a person is allowed to cry, supposed to cry and give out the feelings, but it's not the end of the story. Why? Because the neshama went to the next, and then the neshama is going to come back and do tshuva. And the end, once that neshama is going to do tshuva, is not only going to be to finish it up, it's also going to go even higher because it went through the ra, the evil, and it came back. And it came back up. Now, that's what it means, Godel Balei Tshuva. In the end, that neshama that we had to go through this whole journey reaches a higher spot. That's what happens. Now, that's if a person takes these two pieces of information. Number one, that Hashem takes neshamas, many, and doesn't give them bechira. If you watch these boys, these girls, teenagers, it's no sense, zero sense. You could talk to them, you could machazik them. Some of them, it's very painful, but that's how it is. You could give them whatever you want. You can mechanech them in 1,000 different types of ways. But in some of those neshamas, in different stages of their journey, nothing, zilch, nothing works. The pain of the parents and the mechanechim that they try another thing, and then they try again, and they try from this side and from that side, is unbearable. But do you want to know the truth? It's very painful, but the truth is, it's not different than any type of ishtadlus. That we're mechuyev to try. Sometimes it works. Of course, we're supposed to try, but the person puts their whole emotion into it that it should now work. We can't know. We can't know because it might be a journey that Hashem wants, bedafka, that the boy should go through this, and they have to do it. The neshama has to go through this and has to do avedas first. But it makes no sense. Well, why did Hashem make them so sick? Hashem made them like that. Sometimes people say like this: listen, don't get so overwhelmed that kid is really like doing crazy things. Okay, he's not normal. You don't even know what you're saying. You don't even know what you're saying. What does it mean? Hashem created him that way. Why does Hashem make him not normal if not normal equals to do sick things and averis? Hashem couldn't put in a drop of more seichel, so it shouldn't be so devastating and so crazy. It's beyond our understanding. It's true. It's not easy to watch. We're not supposed to be watching it. It's too hard, too painful. So that's why sometimes it's supposed to be Masir Das and do different things. It's very painful. But think about it. The Gemara says in Masechtas Tainus that Reb Shimon saw a person. He saw a fellow and he said, "Hey, kama muchur adam zeh." I don't know how to say that word in English. It means disgusting. Yeah, not nice. And then Reb Shimon, he had charota that he said that about that person. That person told him. What did that person tell him? That person told him, Lech le'uman, go to the one that created me and tell him how disgusting I am. So the Svarim explain, the Marsha and Reb Tzadok, they say, what do you think? He was talking about his outside appearance? Reb Shimon told the person, hey, you should be aware you're disgusting. The Gemara says no. The Marsha says no. He was doing averis. He was talking about his person's averis. And Reb Shimon said, wow, that's terrible. Look at him. That's so disgusting. And the person followed Reb Shimon and he told him, well, are you aware that Hashem created me that way? That's how they explain. He says, go to the Creator, talk to Him. Tell him that he created me like that. And Reb Shimon ran after him and did tshuva and begged him. He said, I chotosi. I had a big chait. These are Gemaras. You could look up all these. These are Maramakom. This is inside. And we have to know about it because we're watching this happen, and it's so painful. And we have to know that there is a musik of neshamas of Baalei Tshuva. They come down to this world. Some of them come down to secular families. Some of them come down to from families. It doesn't make a difference. It's not if it's a game. We don't know. We ask Hashem, we beg for Bonam, for Tzaddikim, for Erlich children. It doesn't mean that we're in charge and we know everything that's going on. This is part. We are supposed to be davening, not different than any other tefillah. You know what the tefillah is? It says that we're supposed to be davening for the geula. It says that we're supposed to be davening for the geula. But it says in Masechtas Ksubas Kuf Yud Aleph, Daf Kuf Yud Aleph, the Gemara says, you're not allowed to push for the geula too hard. You're not allowed to go up to Eretz Yisrael on your own and this the whole thing with the Medina, with the whole thing. It's a Gemara. You're not allowed to. It's very, very chomer. Rashi says that one of the ways of forcing the geula to happen is to daven too hard. Do you know that? Rashi says, "Laharbus b'tachanunim yoiser midai." To daven too hard. You could look up that Rashi. Now, if we look at the Rashi, it makes no sense. Well, I'm not a daven for the geula. I think I'm stopping the daven Shemon Esrei. You know what that means? It means that, of course, a person is supposed to cry for the geula. The Shechina is betzar. A person is always supposed to know that, but Afal Pisha Yisma Meya, it might take long, but there must be a reason. There must be a reason. I'm davening for the geula to happen, and my davening is helping that geula to happen. When a yid is mishtoikik for the geula, it helps the geula happen. But it doesn't mean that I know the whole story. Maybe Hashem is waiting for Mashiach to come because another Neshama should come back, another Neshama should come back, and something else should happen to Klal Yisrael, which is going to form the shleimus of Klal Yisrael. So a person davens and cries for the geula, but in the same time, when the person finishes crying for the geula, he says, Hashem, I know that you know better than me. I don't know the whole picture. Yeah, but help that the geula should happen, and the person is thanking Hashem for the journey that's happening, and then the person just continues on. And knows that there's a tachlis for the golas, a tachlis, and one day, we're going to see why this will happen. It could take time. Uri Zohar, if you look at him beforehand, it took till 42. People say my child is 24, my child is 28, 32. We don't know. We don't know anything. We don't know what's going on. Things could take years, lifetimes. Tshuva is something that could take decades, because that's the mahus of how it works. That's how this tshuva works like that. There's a journey. You don't know how long that journey is supposed to be. You can know. We look at it like he needs a shidduch. We're like I can't wait till next week, because by next week all the kids. It's something that's beyond our seichel. There's someone in Eretz Yisrael. His name is Mordechai Malachi. He just said a story that someone shared with him. He said he took someone as a ride. It was a tramp, a hitch. So he was in south of Eretz Yisrael in Darom, and a boy, looked like I don't know what, stopped him, and he said, "Are you going up north? Could I drive with you up the highway?" He said, "Yeah." Now, the driver was talking on his Bluetooth or a little, and he had this piece in his ear, and he was talking on the phone. So he was talking, but the passenger, the guy that was taking the hitch, couldn't listen to both sides of the conversation. He was only able to hear what the driver is saying. Now, this driver was talking to someone, and he was calming the person down and giving him a chizik. He was saying, "Listen, you're saying it's 12 years that your boy left. Listen, it could take time. It does take time. But those neshamas, they come back. There's a journey that the neshamas are going through." And he was talking and telling him stories. And then he got off the phone. And the guy from the back tells the driver, "Were you talking to this and that guy? I know who you're talking to." He says, "How do you know?" He says, because I'm the boy. He says, I'm that boy. Now the guy left the car and he put on tefillin. This boy left the car and put on tefillin. It means the most interesting ways how Hashem brings neshamas back. He took a hitch. People take hitches all the day. It's not always in a car. Hashem puts them onto somewhere, and Hashem takes them on a ride. That's how it always works. That's how it always works. He met the other guy, which met that person, and something fascinating. If we understand the depth of it, the Chovos says in Shara B'tochen that a person, it's fascinating. Sometimes you see a person that's a Rosha v'toiv loy. It means he's doing all bad things, doing averis or whatever it is, and he's having a good life. He's supposed to be having onshim. No, the guy he's having heyday. And he says, what could be the reason? It says in the Torah that if you do averis, you're going to get toichach. There's going to be. There's many reasons. It says, you know one of the reasons. One of the reasons is because Hashem knows that this person is going to do tshuva one day. And he gives an example, Menashe Melech Yisrael. He says that Menashe Melech Yisrael, he was a king that he put a tzelem in the Beis HaMikdash, Avodah Zarah, a cross into the Beis HaMikdash, and he was goyim the Churban Beis HaMikdash. Now, this person had a good life. He was a king. He had covet, he had money, he had whatever he wanted for years and years. And he wasn't playing doing Averis. He was taking Klal Yisrael along with him with these Averis. He was doing the terrible things. Terrible. So the Chovos says, so how could it be that for years and years he was having money and whatever he wanted? He says, you know why? Because Hashem knew that the end of this guy's story is that he's going to tshuva. So now already he's having the toiv and the schar. So if we think about it, it seems to make no sense. Why? Because now he's doing averis. So why does he get now schar? It doesn't make any sense. When he'll do mitzvahs, he'll get schar, but now he's in the first part of his life. The answer is, if we look at Reb Uri zohar, we could understand something fascinating. Sometimes Hashem gives the person everything because it's part of the story. If Uri zohar wouldn't have had covet and money and taiva and everything, then he would have never been Uri zohar. So why, when he was doing averis, was he getting all that? Because I need that to happen. Because I want that to happen. Because Hashem wanted him, in a certain sense, quote unquote, to do averis. He didn't have bechira. He was a tinnik shenishba. It's very simple. He didn't have, you don't have to, you can do the math, he was a tinnik shenishba without his tchonas and nevesh and everything. But if you look into it, it would have never had the effect of bringing thousands of neshamas back if he wouldn't have been toivloi then. So if we think about it, every neshama, while they're going through the journey, Hashem is saying, you should do what you're supposed to do to try to get that neshama back. But be aware that this neshama has to be going through, and I could even help that neshama. I could give him siyata d'shmai because he's serving me by falling through. It's deep, but that's what we see. That's how this form explain it. That we have to be aware of this concept. It's constantly like that. That Hashem does it with a tachlis or a mahalak. The nishamas have to go through this, and we don't know. We don't know the reason for it, but sometimes it has to be like that. And a person is supposed to thank for the situation. Not only bakasha. Chayvot levorach is to thank that Hashem put me into this spot to watch this, to see this, and it's part of the mahalak that has to happen. Part of the mahalak that has to happen. And then, when the Geula Hashem is going to come, that's when a person is going to see what was the reason for that. And then they could understand, like people can understand why people went through Golas. Now some people don't understand how to get thank. How could they be happy when such a terrible thing is happening? There's a Gemara in Masechtas Chagiga which explains it. The Gemara in Masechtas Chagiga says that Hashem cries for the Churban. There's a pasuk there that Hashem, Vayikra Hashem Elokim, Hashem tzvokos lachgor sak. It's a pasuk which is in Tikkun Chatzos. Reb Meilech Biederman starts every year his Tisha B'Av Drasha, Tisha B'Av night, with that pasuk, with that pasuk, which talks about how Hashem cries on the Churban, and the Gemara asks that it contradicts, because it says in a different pasuk that Hashem, there's always excitement. Hashem is always happy. There's always simcha. We say that wherever there's a shor, there's a shechina, simcha shal mitzvah. There's always simcha shal mitzvah. So how does it go together? So the Gemara says that it depends. There's something called botei gavoi, and there's something called botei broi. The inner rooms, and then there's the outer circle. Now, the Rabbeinu Hananel explains, different than Rashi, Rabbeinu Hananel explains that deep inside the pneumius, there's always simcha. From the outside, there's pain, there's tsar, the shechina is tsar. But inside, the shechina is happy, in the middle of Golus. Now, what's the concept? Why? How could it be? The answer is because Hashem knows the future. But not only knows the future, by Hashem, the future is now. There's no difference between the past and the current and the future. It's all the hoyoivi. It's only by us that we're limited. So it's like we're not now living the past. We can't live the future. We could only live in the second, and we have to chaparain. But by Hashem, it's all. There's no zman. There's no zman. So if every neshama does tshuva, and Hashem is living the future and knows the future, in that tshuva helps these neshamas be in a higher spot, then that's a very big simcha. And I could dance about that now. If Hashem could be happy about that now, then I could as well. I could also be excited about that now. And it's very important to know that people feel guilty. They say, I'm not allowed to. They say, how could it be? Well, if Hashem could do it, you could do it. Hashem does it about the most painful thing, about the Shechina being a tzad. There is no Beis Hamikdash. It says it clearly in the Gemara. Because there is no reason to be crying. Now, there is also the concept of crying. It doesn't say you're not allowed to cry. But it depends what you're referring to. At the same time, both parts are true. You have a chasana. There's a chuppah. There's a mitzvah tanz. There's people crying. There are people dancing. There could be a chasana of a new fresh yoshalam le'olenu, which is very, very exciting. But then when they remind of the Neshama of the father that's coming to the chasana or whatever, and people will be crying. You're allowed to cry and you're supposed to be dancing. You're not only because you're normal and you have feelings and emotion, it's also because both are true. Both are true. There is a tsar that is, a person not supposed to be dancing on Tisha B'Av, but a person is supposed to be dancing on Yontif, even though in Yontif and Musaf we say that there's no Beis Hamikdash, because both are true at the same time. When we watch a Neshama in Golus, the Neshama is in Golus. It's very painful. The Neshama is going through something terrible. But this Neshama is on the journey to something even higher and better. And it's a topic of Bali Tshuva, and Hashem brings down these Neshamas. And we're supposed to be trying to help them do Tshuva. We could talk, we could sing, we could be machazik, we could love them, which is one of the most strongest avoidus, which is not simple always, strongest avoidus. But knowing the toitzois, what's the results? The results is in Hashem's hand, because there's cheshboinus. A person davens and a person thanks. It's like the geula of that neshama is not different than the geula hashlema. A person davens, but don't fight Hashem's plan. Even when it comes to these matters, don't fight. You could cry to Hashem that it's so painful to watch this happen. But you must remember to add to that. But Hashem, you know what's best. You know what's best. And if you could watch it, and you know how painful it is, then I could know that it's in Hashem's hand. There's 3 shutzvim. Right? There's partners in creating. A person comes down to the world. There's a father, there's the mother, there's Hashem. Hashem is a partner. And Hashem knows what's going on. As long as we try, and we daven to Hashem, then a person has to know there could be that this is the tachlis. Right now, this has to happen. And one day we'll see. And Reb Uri Zohar is one of those examples that Hashem gave us to watch and see how it could be that the biggest Tavedas should bring light to the world more than tzaddikim. It's a Gemara, But the Maral says Hashem brings these neshamas to teach us to see it live, to watch it, to understand that it's true. It's tangible. You could actually see it. No, the Rebbe should help all neshamas and all of us. We should do tshuva and we should be zohar to the Gula Shlema.